still works, and we managed to find a couple more suckers to join us today. Dedicated highbrow lawyers to join us today. How's everybody doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Good to see you guys. Always a pleasure to be back.
Good to see you. Now, we're going to actually be repeating a case that we talked about yesterday. A lot of people don't realize Nate and I are trying to do Thursdays as well. And one of the cases, Nate and I didn't really diverge too far on our opinion. So it's a cool case. It's great to cover it again. It's about Arron Spencer, who is charged with and going to trial for shooting and killing an individual. And his story took a lot of twists and turns, if you will. And we're going to cover it now with a couple other eyeballs and opinions to see if the opinions change on whether this is justified or not, or what should actually happen to currently Mr. Spencer, but he may have another title soon. And I think, Nate, you've got a video clip, or do you want to break it down? You know what, Sean, you could break it down. You said you've been covering this. Tell us who Arron Spencer is and why we care.
You're muted, Sean.
Right. Arron Spencer's like the modern day Gary Plauché. Arron Spencer had a daughter, and his daughter was victimized.
Still has her.
What's that?
She's still alive.
Yes, right? she's still alive. She was victimized by a man named Michael Fosler. And Michael Fosler was indicted for like 40 different felony offenses of, essay on a minor, inappropriate sexual contact with a minor, using the internet inappropriately with a minor, like all kinds of things. You're like, wow, that sounds pretty bad. One of the conditions of his bond was stay away from this victim. Pretty straightforward, get released on bond. I know people are mad at that, but that's a pretty standard thing. So Arron Spencer is the father of this kid. And Arron Spencer's at home one night, and he goes into his daughter's bedroom, and she's gone. And Arron Spencer, like a concerned father, goes out and starts looking for his daughter. As he's out driving around looking for his daughter, he sees his daughter in the car with Michael Fosler. He chases them down, and Arron Spencer doesn't deny this. He admits to shooting Michael Fosler to death as he tries to rescue his child from the car. Because why is his child in the car with a man who's got felony charges accused of victimizing this kid? And, why is she in the car? There's no reason for that. So they indict him for murder. And it's not, basically it sounds like the state is arguing that when the daughter initially disclosed, Arron Spencer said in front of the police he wanted to go take care of this business on his own months beforehand. And they're basically arguing this is vigilante justice, not an immediate rescuing of somebody from a violent predator. But the state has indicted him for murder. They've been prosecuting it. And the case has got, do you want me to stop there or kind of go through the rest of the case?
Well, yeah, let me play the video, because the video goes over all this.
Yeah. That's basically based. Dad is who he is.
It's about every parent, every neighbor, every family.
It's the campaign kickoff for an Arkansas sheriff's race everyone is talking about. His name is Arron Spencer, and he's running to be the top lawman of Lonoke County, all while currently fighting murder charges, announcing his campaign in a Facebook post.
Through my own fight for justice, I have seen firsthand the failures in law enforcement.
Spencer is facing second-degree murder charges for the killing of a man he says raped his daughter. According to court documents, on a night last October, Spencer awoke to his dog barking and found his 13-year-old daughter missing, a hoodie on a stuffed animal placed in her bed, and found her in the trunk of 67-year-old Michael Fosler. After forcing Fosler's vehicle off the road, a confrontation, ending with Spencer shooting and killing Fosler, according to the court documents. And according to court records, Fosler was out on bond after being charged with multiple sex offenses involving a child. In lifting a gag order on Spencer's proceedings.
See, and that's the problem, because the child was Spencer's daughter.
Yeah.
The child was Spencer's daughter.
Jesus.
Well, he's out there looking for her.
Yeah.
So
But the guy's in the car with his victim. That's the thing. They, notice how they don't include that part, because at that point, once again, Arron Spencer's like, yeah, he basically does a Samuel L. Jackson bit of, yes, I did it. I hope he burns in hell. And yes, they don't deny it. The prosecutor, it's funny, as this case has gone on and on and on, every time they release more information, trying to make Arron look worse, it's even more based. That there was a high-speed chase. The guy refused to stop and let the kid out of the car. And the Arron Spencer shot the guy 15 out of 16 times. Like, he scored 15 hits. He only missed once.
So like he gets a reward for accuracy?
Yeah.
Great trigger discipline.
I just want to make sure I know what we're judging on here.
Yeah. He didn't hurt his kid. The kid was safe. They try to make this guy sound worse every time, and every document you read through, you're just like, you've already sold me on this. He's innocent. Don't keep, like, the only thing Arron Spencer's going to be guilty of is not going to eat a steak dinner with me after he gets acquitted.
Why do we? Oh, sorry.
Spencer.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Do we know why they charged this case?
Well, they're gonna go.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna go through that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's finish it.
Against Spencer's teenage daughter. Spencer not responding to our request for an interview, but his attorney lifting a gag order on Spencer's proceedings. A judge writing Fosler's alleged offenses were acts against Spencer's teenage daughter. Spencer not responding to our request for an interview, but his attorney telling NBC News in a statement he was, quote, justified under Arkansas law in taking action to protect his daughter and himself.
I'm the father who acted to protect his daughter when the system failed.
After his video post went viral, with many commenters praising Spencer, his wife launched multiple fundraisers that have since been removed. The campaign's Facebook page with 15,000 followers now links to a new fundraising page. Spencer posting, support from this community has been beyond anything I imagined. The primary is set for March. Candidate filings begin next month. Spencer will likely face off against current Lonoke County Sheriff John Staley, whose department arrested him. NBC News reached out to Staley's office for comment, but did not hear back. The sheriff telling one local paper he couldn't comment on Spencer's case because of the pending trial, but that he'll run again, saying, since 2013, I have served as sheriff with a clear mission to protect our citizens and hold those who break the law accountable. NBC News also reached out to the county prosecutor's office, but have not heard back. A man charged with taking the law into...
Well, hold on. Because they did mention it, but I do have it right here. So the prosecutor's argument is that this was essentially vigilante killing.
Mm-hmm.
They say that Spencer escalated the situation by pursuing the vehicle to initiate a lethal encounter. They said he rammed the vehicle off the road, and he drew his weapon first. There was the person in the car, the kidnapper, they don't believe, based on what they've seen, that there was any imminent threat to the daughter, or
except for hanging out with the violent predator.
Oh yeah.
Who has an order against him, and there's nobody else at the time. So I guess let him drive off.
Let me just lay out the finish the process you just said, because I know it's crazy.
You can't even say it with a straight face.
I can't. They also say that the daughter's presence in the vehicle was consensual. The daughter, it was like
they're doing the libertarian argument. What if she consents?
I don't give a fuck.
So what is the age of consent there again? And how does that work with minors?
Her presence in the vehicle, not the sexual stuff, but the presence of the minor in the vehicle, and that he was run off the road, and that this was essentially an execution by someone. So the argument here is this was not proportional use.
Why,
of force,
Aaron? Why?
And this was not self-defense. The defense's argument is that, number one, you have a parent whose daughter is kidnapped. So she's essentially kidnapped at that moment in time.
Clearly.
She's 14. And the person who is on trial for blanking her and is facing a life sentence now is taking her and is in the car with her. So it is less. So the argument is less about self-defense. In other words, I'm trying to protect myself. Then I'm defense of my daughter. And his argument is that his daughter being in the car with her blankist, or her accused blankist, and him having the restraining order and everything, his daughter was in imminent danger of a life-threatening situation that allowed him to use deadly physical force to obtain his daughter from that situation. And he used the appropriate amount of force against someone who was in who's actively engaged in a violent kidnapping. So that's the defense's argument, and that's what makes it justified.
But I mean,
now,
look,
go ahead, Ryan.
Look, man, like I've got 2 daughters, and like when it comes to like I'm talking about like core law. I'm not talking about like complex law, but like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, like the core stuff. The law's got to kind of line up with common sense. You don't want to put people in jail for doing things that anyone in their right mind would do. I got 2 kids. Anybody in their right mind, you're a father, you see your kid is missing at night and you find them in the car of a sex offender and they're speeding away from you, you're going to do something about it.
The sex offender that's accused of doing this to that your daughter.
There's just no question about that. I mean, like, to me, the reason I asked, like, why are they charging this is like, for them to charge this, I would have thought they would have had to have some theory that like, he faked it. Like the girl wasn't in the car and he just wanted to get revenge. And then he like told his daughter to get in the car after the fact. Like it was like, like he was trying to doctor it up to make it look like defense. But if she got kidnapped, I mean, I don't even understand why they bothered bringing charges.
Well, back in July,
I have a theory for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just read this last thing for the prosecution. The prosecution also argues that Spencer planned this. Months prior to the shooting, Spencer asked an acquaintance that what was Fossler's, the person's address, and that to not call the police. And Spencer also complained that Fossler will get back out and asked how much time could he get, 3 to 5 years. The deputy explicitly warns him on body cam, we don't live in a country where you could take the law into your own hands. But that was months before this. Now, months later, the person grabs his daughter and is in the truck with his daughter. So they're saying that this was more premeditation versus frustration.
I think they have to prove that. Like if they couldn't prove premeditation, I couldn't imagine you could get a jury to convict this guy. Now, if you could prove it was part of like a months-long scheme, then maybe I could see you getting a conviction. But absent that, I just don't see how. Sorry, Eric.
All right, this is my theory. Okay, first off, Nate's right. He said all that. And an incident happened after he talked to the deputy on body cam. And that was this individual was arrested and charged with like 40 to 60 a ridiculous amount of counts of all these horrible, horrible crimes. After he was charged with all these horrible, horrible crimes, while waiting for trial, is he sitting in jail? No, he was let out on a $50,000 bond, which we all know translates to $5,000 out of pocket to pay to get the bond. So if he was sitting in jail at this time, waiting for trial, the man would be alive. So my theory is this. The people who killed this individual are the judge and the prosecutor for letting this guy out to where he could endanger the child again, which does start this whole incident flow down the line, and to cover their own guilt, their own dirty hands, they're going after the father because it makes them look like shit. That's just my personal opinion.
There's another layer. There's a couple layers to this. The dead guy, I don't know if you mentioned it. Sorry, I had to step away. He's a former police chief or some, like he was law enforcement himself. He has a little bit of tie to the local establishment of power, but
so
I mean, there's some of that. There's some of that, but this is really more of, I think, just the state. This is a challenge to the monopoly on violence the state enjoys.
Yes.
I mean, and that's but the problem is when the state, if the populace feels the state has abdicated their responsibility and that mantle of violence we have given unto them, people can decide, well, we're taking it back and we're going to use it. But no, this case has had so many issues. I don't know if you guys covered all the problems with the judge in this case.
No, he had to recuse, right?
Oh, no, not recused. The judge got removed by the Supreme Court of Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
So the way it started out, the judge put out a gag order. And the gag order was not only for the prosecutor and the defense team, which, okay, that makes sense. Anybody in his family couldn't talk about this case. Nobody was allowed to talk about it. That's why they appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court. And the Arkansas Supreme Court's like, it was even divided. But they said, yeah, you can't do this. And one of the judges said, if I had my way, I'd remove her right now. This woman can't. This judge is not fit for this. Things have gone on. This case was set to go to trial a couple weeks ago. And at the last minute, there was another writ of certiorari, a writ of prohibition was filed. And the Arkansas Supreme Court's like, yeah, you can't preside over this case. Get the fuck out.
Wow.
And they removed the judge at the eve of like Friday before trial.
Wow.
Trial was set for
this
Monday,
may not even go to trial then. What you're saying, like,
Oh.
if there's so many problems with it, maybe eventually the prosecutor say, you know what, we're just going to dismiss charges.
No, I don't think they're going to. I think that they're having to appoint a new judge. But this judge was awful the way she did it. The way she handled this case was absolutely atrocious.
But I will say this though.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I'm assuming the gag order was because when people hear this story, you poisoned your jury pool, right? If essentially your jury pool is done.
Yeah, but you know what? The state's not entitled to a fair trial.
That's true. Yes. No,
Like,
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying,
maybe. I mean, that's something I object to when I hear I always try to I make motions for that. There are times where I make motions for that, and they kind of look at you weird. You're like, well, Judge, no. If nobody is willing to give the state a fair shake, that is the same as an acquittal. That we don't want to prosecute this. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, especially these facts have got to be huge. I imagine he's going to win this election for sheriff's office based on these facts.
Well, he won the primary.
Well, he won the primary.
Republican.
And it's essentially only Republicans win 99.99 at the time.
It's like ALC's district in New York. There's no Republican that's going to win there. This is the reverse, right, Nate?
Yeah. So I imagine this. That goes to show what the people in the community think about this fact pattern, right? So good luck getting that conviction. You'd have to do real well at voir dire to get that conviction. I don't know what to say. But the thing about this fact pattern that surprised me was that typically when you hear about these vigilante cases, one of the arguments that's made is if it's not like an imminent self-defense situation, people say well, you could have backed off and called the cops. That's like a typical argument. But here it's like she's in the car is moving. Yeah. What are you what are you asking him to do?
How long do you wait?
Like, all right, I'm just gonna call the cops and hope he doesn't essay my daughter while I wait. That seems like a stretch.
There's also another element to this, and it's Cain Velasquez, the UFC former heavyweight champion of the UFC.
Crazy case,
his kid got essayed allegedly, and the guy who got charged with it, Velasquez, followed them and chased them down one day coming back from court or going to court, and he got into this high-speed chase, was running him off the road, and eventually he wrecked him out, and he pulled out a gun and started shooting, and he hit the guy's dad or stepdad or dad. It didn't hit the guy he was aiming at. And it's, it's one of the deals where, yes, vigilante justice sounds good at times until it's, I think this is a great point of, think about some dipshit neighbor in your town come knocking on your door and say, you did me wrong. And he convinced a bunch of other morons to show up at your door and they think you did it. Vigilante justice sounds great till you're like, oh God, I got to kill 20 people or they're going to kill me. Or they're going to try to beat me or they're going to take me to jail. And it's this is one of the few times that the vigilante, even if it is vigilante justice, great. This fits all the factors. But that's one of the big reasons why we're kind of worried about it. We like to have an impartial government be the one dispensing justice because we don't trust, I'd be the benevolent, dictator, but I don't think you guys would. But that's a problem we have.
I disagree with even calling this vigilante.
I agree too. It's not, but I'm just saying if you wanted to call it that.
Yeah, my specific reason is this was a kidnapping in progress.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't this was he kidnapped her and he's chilling out. This was a kidnapping in progress. You've run the person off the road, the person, and all these facts. If you change it from Spencer being the father to it being a cop.
Oh yeah, it's open season.
I don't see how you can then say the cop. It's like a cop. He would be a hero. He saved this child. She was with them. There would be no question. So I think the fact that the prosecutors overstepping their skis because they say, well, since it's her father, we have an issue with it. But I think the anybody else though, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
No,
if it was anyone else.
To get a conviction here, I think you would have to prove one of two. The only two things I could think of. One, that this was all like a scheme, like it was some kind of pretense on Spencer's part, and he kind of orchestrated this to get vengeance in advance. Or two, that he had already saved his daughter and gotten her to safety, and then turned around and killed him afterwards. Like, he's like, all right.
Even then, I don't think you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Sean. I think like if it was like within a couple seconds, I think even then you'd have a tough time. If it was like, if there was a cooling off period, it might be easier. But like outside of those two scenarios, I can't imagine getting a conviction.
Well, this leads us to Eric's big point: jury nullification.
Yeah,
is this one of those things where it's just straight up, no reasonable jury is going to do it? Because again, the key point here for the self-defense argument is because they use the defense of others. Was his daughter sitting in the car with that man? Was she in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury?
Yes.
Would a reasonable person think that? And if a reasonable person would think that, then the next level is, well, was he now justified in using deadly physical force to retrieve his daughter from that dangerous situation? Was an eminence there? And I think that's the two legal issues we got to respond to. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
I think that the jury nullification question has already been answered by the primary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think though for jury nullification, I think for jury nullification though, Nate, I think that's not the proper term here, because I think of jury nullification of you catch a guy with a bunch of marijuana. And everybody in town's like, yeah, I don't think that should be illegal. We shouldn't prosecute this. Mm-hmm. That's nullification. Here, there's a valid justification to say, no, he was within his rights. So,
I think both are jury nullification, because the jury is saying that the law does not apply here.
Well, no, I think the point Sean's making is like they could just find self-defense applies. Whereas when you think about jury nullification, it's more like it's a open and shut case, and they say we're acquitting anyway. This is like he should win, and we're acquitting anyway.
It's kind of like but think of like jury nullification would be like the murder of
Emmett Till. Yeah,
that'd be a great example. The jury's like, yeah, we don't care.
Everybody said, like the guy said, we killed him, we did it. Yes.
We don't care.
The jury said we don't care.
Yeah. That's true jury.
This is more like, it's not jury nullification exactly. It's more, when I was clerking, I was working a criminal trial, and the jury charges were really complicated. And for those of you who aren't lawyers or law nerds, jury charges are like really, 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 really high stress for clerks and judges, because they're the first thing that gets appealed. So you got to get them perfect, and there's a lot of appellate risk, so it's really stressful. So we were working on these for weeks. There were conferences. It was like a big deal to get these right. And I handed them to one of the defense counsel, rest in peace, he was a great guy. And he looked at me and said, Ryan, because he didn't even read them. And I kind of looked at him like, you're not going to look at them? And he goes, Ryan, if I win, nothing in those matter. And I was like, oh, I got you. For the record, his client was acquitted. So,
I do want to ask you guys, because you guys rejected the jury nullification argument, but then you made a jury nullification argument right before this. Remember, because I think, was it Sean? Whether you guys had said, well, if he grabbed his daughter and saved her and then turned around and shot the guy a whole bunch of times,
that would be
it would be thing. So I think that really depends on the circumstances. Mm-hmm. If he did that, then you got jury nullification, because you guys have said, even if that's true, you guys wouldn't find him guilty.
Well, the state hasn't alleged that specifically.
But I'm saying, it was if they could prove these elements dead to rights.
I agree. Yes,
I still think you have. So I think Eric's point of jury nullification is a real fear here, because I don't know what other evidence technically you can have to show
that. Nate, that's a perfect example. So just to break down that, because it's dead on. Let's say they proved, and we don't think this is true, but let's say they proved he rammed the car over, he threw the guy out of the driver's seat, he rescued the daughter, he counted to 15, then he turned around and shot the guy, right? I think under the law, technically, you would say that the 15-second count was enough of a cooling off period, especially if the guy's not armed and you are. Let's assume that the guy wasn't armed, that there's no imminent threat anymore in that situation. But yeah, in that situation, I think you're right. I think the jury would probably still acquit, and that would be classic jury nullification at that point.
That's kind of where I'm going is, the same way as when somebody is charged, they have, they're charged with like say murder one or second degree, lesser included, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that gives the jury a second bite at the apple. So my thought is that in this particular case, if the jury doesn't agree about the self-defense, but they don't want to charge a guy, boom, their second, they may fall to a nullification and say, you know what, and I still don't freaking care. And that's kind of, I guess, my thought on the jury nullification angle. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe self-defense is kind of questionable, but I wish that somebody would do that for my daughter. I wish you'd do that. And then that is now jury nullification. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And the only reason we were pushing back on jury nullification is that we thought on the facts we know, the self-defense argument is so strong that you never even get to nullification. but yeah, I think as a backup argument, nullification is actually on deck too.
Though, because they're still charging. If those facts are so strong, there's a question of why he's even being charged at all.
That's why
I think we'd all agree. So there's a real risk for this guy to be in prison. So every layer that can help him out all the way up to jury nullification is kind of important. And I'm thinking the election is the community signaling that, it ain't going to happen for you.
Yeah, this is, I mean, maybe I think my experience biases me a little bit because like I've only really worked with like criminally, like with like SDNY, like the AUSAs there, who they tend not to bring cases unless they're almost certain they're going to win at trial. Like they don't go to trial to lose. Like it's rare that they lose a case. This one, like this is almost like a Hail Mary. Like I would think they must have thought like they couldn't have thought they had a good chance of convicting him. So it's weird to me that they brought the charges if the chance of conviction is so low. But
Ryan, would there be an ethical concern with this then? Because usually prosecutors shouldn't bring charges they don't.
I mean, I don't know, like as a formal legal ethics, I don't know. I know nothing about Arkansas's, like code of ethics. But like, in terms of like my own professional sense, I think if prosecutors don't, if you can't even say with a straight face you're crossing the 51% threshold, you certainly shouldn't be thinking about bringing a case. And if, like you have to think it's beyond a reasonable doubt, right? At minimum, you have to think that. And I don't see how they could possibly think that unless they know something we don't know.
Sunk cost fallacy.
They haven't really disclosed anything else, Ryan. Like every time they put a motion out responding to the defense, they add information, and every time you're just like, it just makes it even like more compelling for Arron. The one thing I will say, and this is something that's been highlighted in the Arron Spencer case, there are a lot of states where you can just be charged with a felony because the prosecutor's like, it's called an information. I think you did it. Not a grand jury. Mm-hmm. The prosecutor just files an information, and now you're facing life in prison. And it's something where, his attorneys have tried to push an argument for like, you have a constitutional right to a grand jury, implicating that right to the states trying to incorporate it. And it's something that I really do think should happen. It's something that I am so happy for here in Ohio that I can't get prosecuted for a felony unless a grand jury indicts me.
That's a good point. Would a grand jury actually indict this guy? I mean, you have a really valid point, because to me, a grand jury is the height of justice, and you guys can help me out. I know that's not the only way people can be charged, but to me, that is the most appropriate.
It's the only way they should
citizens themselves determining in the community that yes, this person should be charged. And if this would not make a grand jury, then it's a valid point.
Yeah, and we talked about this with the Don Lemon situation a few weeks ago, where it was like, you can charge another way federally. You can charge another way, but then the magistrate gets to review it. And generally speaking, the magistrates they make it even tougher than the grand jury would, right? Because the grand jury is the gold standard, and they don't want to be a rubber stamp. They're going to be more searching. So yeah, I mean, if Sean, I don't know anything about Arkansas law, but if Sean's correct and you can just be charged on information, that makes it even more suspect, because that makes it seem even more political. Like you don't because the truth is, what's this phrase? You could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Yeah. And we've seen actually that this year that sometimes you can't even convince them to do that, right? Sometimes, you go to the grand jury, and this happened a few times to the Trump administration. They couldn't get it done. So it is it is a low bar, but it is a bar, and it's good to have that.
But now, I would say just covering these cases, it's shocking to me, especially like I take that for granted here in Ohio. Like my client's like, well, I don't, the grand jury no-billed me. I'm like, well, then you're never going to get charged.
Well, I do want to ask
a grand jury who agrees.
I do want to ask you guys about this then, because this then brings us back 14th Amendment incorporation stuff when it comes to the Constitution, because this isn't a Constitution, right? You have the right to a grand jury, but this is one of those few rights that haven't been incorporated. So for people who don't understand, the First Amendment, like your freedom of speech, that was from the beginning of the country only against the federal government. So the state governments could actually violate your freedom of speech. They didn't have to respect any of those fundamental rights. But then we had the 14th Amendment, which incorporated those fundamental rights to the individuals, even by the state. But not all of those rights have been incorporated to the states. And one of those rights that haven't been incorporated is your right to a grand jury. Now, most states have that you have to have a grand jury indict you for felonies. And in the federal government, they have to. But that right to be indicted by a grand jury hasn't been incorporated to the states. So Louisiana is one of the few states that says, hey, since we don't have to do it constitutionally, we're going to do it this way. But this does leave open the challenge that this should be incorporated to the state, especially in a case like this. I hope I explained that well.
Yeah. No. I think in all cases it should be. I mean, the idea that, like, Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, Kyle Rittenhouse never went to a grand jury. That was an information filed by the prosecution. And if you can't find anybody in town that's willing to even put this up to trial, as a juror, you guys out there, I can't actively encourage you to go engage in jury nullification as an officer of the court. But in case Supreme Court of Ohio is watching, but as a juror, you have some of the most direct influence on your government that you will ever have. And you can tell your government, I don't want to prosecute this crime. Here's what policy I want to see. It's a very important power. So yeah, jury duty sounds boring, but you're dictating policy to the government.
What about a runaway grand jury, though? Because you could have that. For those of you who know, runaway grand juries are grand juries who just say, F the prosecutor, we're doing it. And there was even one case where they charged the prosecutor. They indicted the prosecutor.
I mean, well, if they get out of hand, then you could deal with, if that's the thing,
it's possible.
Planes crash sometimes.
It happens, but the thing is, and I mean, Sean knows this as a defense counsel, like, in our system, the prosecutor has all the levers of power. They have all the levers of power. They get to decide what they charge, how they plea, they set the timing, they have the resources. Generally speaking, all the structural advantages are with the prosecution, and then counterbalancing that is, that you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense doesn't have to prove anything, and these kind of procedural safeguards. So, if a prosecutor can't control their grand jury, I don't know. I'm not hugely sympathetic.
Can I point out an exception to what you're saying, Ryan? Because you're right. The majority of the time, vast majority of the time, that is absolutely true. But there are some rare cases that it's flipped, and one of those was the prosecution against Alec Baldwin in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You literally had the city having to ask for $300,000 to budget a prosecution against somebody who had tens of millions of dollars generated for a defense. You could call every witness in the world, everything else in the world, and we saw how that kind of worked out.
Yeah, you do get these situations where, like, a high net worth individual can bring in, like, crazy amounts of legal counsel, and they can do that, and that gives them some advantages. But even in those cases, the prosecutors still have the structural advantages I'm talking about in terms of shaping the charges, setting the schedule, structuring the evidence. They still have all the ability to wield the levers of government that they typically have, but they can get outspent in these rare instances where typically it's a state or local prosecution against a high net worth individual, because the feds have enough resources that's not.
Well, the feds have unlimited resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also the feds have access to like kind of typically like a deep bench of very skilled lawyers who are working for, an incredible discount. So,
well, I want to get through these.
By the way, we have Joe here and we have Ryan here. Ryan, go start typing. Let's have a type off.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
I just got a new keyboard. You shouldn't be able to hear me anymore.
This wasn't me. This wasn't me for once. I'm not the culprit, and you can tell because Joe's typing is soft and melodic and thoughtful. My typing is sharp and hurtful. I'm trying to tell chat to screw themselves. You know when I'm typing.
Well, so this super chat, the fact that the AG is going after the father and the judge let the guy out on $50,000 bond is why I find it very difficult to trust the system. That's Eric's point. Eric was like the $50,000 bond was ridiculous for 40 felony counts of child blank.
And he's 67 years old. So I mean, we're literally, this is saying if you can come up with $5,000, this is your last chance for freedom to do what you want. I hate to say, and I have a feeling he was doing what he wanted when he had her in the vehicle, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
whatever.
Sean, you said that's typical, like a 50 grand bond in a case.
Yeah,
like this?
I mean, like I had a case where, guys accused of essaying a minor facing life in prison, and he was out on a $10,000 bond. I mean, the idea is like he had no means to leave the town. He was in the community, he had a job, presumption he's innocent. Yeah, like I think you should be able to be free because, like I don't just want to lock that guy. Like he could be wrong. I mean, he's a presumption of innocence still at that point. So,
wow. Okay, we can argue this one for a while because when you say no means, it's like you can't come up with a bus ticket, you can't hitchhike.
I mean,
I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, well, if that's the case, then everybody's a flight risk.
Everybody is to a degree, sure, but especially when you're talking about somebody with that advanced of age, that's what I'm talking about. It's like he's done. I mean, there's no coming out the other side. He's not 25 years old. He's 67 years old. Whatever sentence he get is potentially a death sentence.
He also can be acquitted, though. I mean, like that's the thing.
Yeah, the weird bit there is that the typical wisdom is that if you look at like recidivism stats, when people hit like 45 or so, they stop offending, generally speaking. Like that's the number one correlation with like, if you hold someone in prison until they're 45 or 40 and then you release them, they tend not to be, to convict him. This guy at 67 seems real interested in continuing his pattern of assault. And
I don't disagree at the point where you found him, but he gets charged all these offenses. He still stands innocent. Like, okay, yeah, he got charged. He's accused of a bunch of heinous stuff. We're not just automatically locking him up. I mean,
yeah, and not to be gross, but what I was kind of getting at is that the judge might have thought, this is an older guy. He's probably more likely to be able to control his sexual impulses while he's out on bond. But they were wrong.
Yeah, but they were definitely wrong.
They were wrong.
You poison the jury pool becomes common sense. Wouldn't convict the father. He saved the government some money.
I mean, ultimately he did, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The trial's not free.
They're doing a trial again. The trial.
They saved on one trial.
Video evidence been discussed. No, we didn't discuss the missing video.
Yes.
But let's.
Fosler had a dash cam, and somehow that's all gone. We don't know where it's at.
Let's move to this next case because this other case was, I think, pretty much everybody believes it was self-defense. Right?
I don't know. Joe hasn't talked the whole time other than his keyboard. Do you agree?
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure if he knows the case.
He was sending signals in Morse code.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this.
I haven't been following this particular case, so
I'm gonna. So here's the.
It like it's a bunch of Goyim out in Arkansas.
So we get to play. We get to play this.
It's good to see you, Joe,
before I play this case, right? It says man hit and killed after A1 A4. No, this has nothing. That has nothing to do with it. This is a case of a firefighter claiming that he employed self-defense against another motorist he got into a car accident with, and the judge has denied his self-defense claim. So we're going to play the news clip and then we'll discuss.
Miami-Dade fire rescue employee caught on camera shooting another man in the face on Halloween night says that he acted in self-defense.
But as NBC6's Christian Colon reports, a judge didn't buy that argument and now he's headed to trial. Road rage on Halloween night escalated into gunfire when two men confronted each other on the side of the road. Video shows when a man dressed in a Harry Potter costume approached another car after some sort of reckless driving incident on the road.
Not guilty.
Shortly after the other driver stepped out
Not
of
guilty
his car,
already.
he opened fire.
Hold on, Sean. You're speaking too soon. You got to get the accuracy.
From the arrest affidavit of first-degree felony, attempted murder, the second degree with a deadly weapon, a firearm specifically.
The shooter was Emilio Rodriguez, an off-duty Miami-Dade fire rescue safety specialist for 18 years. Rodriguez fired shortly after Yuri Cerda, the man in the Harry Potter costume, approached his car. Cerda was shot in the upper lip and managed to drive himself to urgent care.
Hey, relax.
Defense because he feared. Rodriguez claimed in court he shot in self-defense because he feared for his life. Judge Michelle Delancey disagreed.
This was nothing but Mr. Rodriguez seeking to shoot Mr. Cerda because they had just engaged in this road rage incident, and there was nothing to it that was self-defense.
Rodriguez asked the court to drop the attempted murder charge under Florida Stand Your Ground law, but the judge denied the request, ruling that although the victim was the initial aggressor by approaching the car, Rodriguez was simply angry after being cut off several times on the road. The judge also mentioned the most telling was what Rodriguez told police.
When I shot him, my purpose was to scare him. He kept coming at me. He threw his arms up. I wasn't trying to shoot him. It was a warning shot. Cerda started it. I finished it.
Hold on, that was the biggest mistake of all, was it not?
Yeah.
Because if you're not under enough threat that you can fire a warning shot, then you're not under threat. Last time I checked.
Generally speaking, yes, but
what if it's a Harry Potter costume?
I know,
Eric,
that's
does that
the problem.
change? Does that change it for you?
Well, it depends on the accuracy using Sean's logic.
Hold on, just let me.
Well, he missed. He wasn't accurate.
Let me give you the defense's argument and the prosecution's argument, and then we'll go to it. So the defense's argument is that the victim was the initiator, approached his vehicle after road rage, tried to
cast a spell.
The defense said tried to open the door. Obviously, we saw he didn't try to open the door. And Rodriguez claimed he fired for safety for the occupants of his own vehicle, and obviously you heard what he said about he started, finished it, all that stuff. The prosecution, their argument is just essentially watch the tape and see what happens. That's essentially their argument. So he can't use stand your ground. He can't use self-defense. Do you think this was the right ruling, or do you think this was the wrong ruling?
100% correct.
Probably right.
I mean, yeah.
He's literally retreating.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. He like literally. You watch the video. He's not closing ground. His hands.
He's literally moving backwards. Like, don't shoot me.
Yeah.
No grand to stand, right?
What about the argument that was a warning shot? It was just a badly placed warning shot.
That makes it worse.
You're still responsible for all that. Yeah.
And then closing out with I taught that guy a lesson. Like, oh my God.
And it's a warning shot. What are you shooting at? I mean, are you so inaccurate that the sky is a person's face? I'm very confused on how that warning shot works. That's a weird one.
I mean, well, that's all that's all cope at the time. He's trying to make it sound like he didn't really do it. He didn't mean to do it. That's all him just coping in front of the cops.
This is why you shouldn't say anything, because now that's you being used against him in court of law, right?
So that's yes.
Maybe it was self-defense because he thought he was about to use an Expelliarmus charm.
Well,
I don't know what that is. It was a spell.
Yeah, did he say expel? He's like expelli, and then he got
pulled
shot.
His wand out. All I know about Harry Potter is the hat, the Ku Klux Klan hat talks.
Oh, nice.
That's all I know.
I know a lot more than that.
It tells them which gang they're in.
It was more of a Dean Thomas costume than a Harry Potter costume. But
oh my! Okay, we're gonna get a nerd war in the weeds here. Woo!
When Arron was accused, think he'll
was acquitted.
When Arron is acquitted, think he'll do a 1983 Spencer versus Arizona to incorporate grand juries. Maybe, but there's a case on point. California I forgot. It was a California case in which the Supreme Court said that the states don't have to.
They don't have
to use in grand jury.
So and a 1983 lawsuit you can't enforce public policy that way. So, and he won't be able to sue the prosecutors. They have immunity anyway. So
Yeah, and then I don't know how they violated his rights because they had probable cause to do exactly what they did. He literally shot the guy.
And the big point is that the right to the grand jury doesn't exist. So if you 1983 that they violated my rights, it's like, well, the right doesn't exist.
Yeah. But they can go and try to overturn.
Yeah.
That part, but I don't know if they're going to be successful. It's not just happening here. A judge in New Zealand let a man off with 19 hours of community service and eliminating a young woman. The dad so mad that he threw a chair at the judge. Yeah. But like that's what Eric was saying, as you saying earlier, Eric, right? It's all about the judges is the problem with these particular cases, not.
Yeah, there are times it is. Yeah,
and then there was a thing that happened. I know when I was in law school, this was getting talked about a lot. There's multiple reasons to give a criminal sentence about justice. The modern trend, particularly in left-leaning circles, has been to focus on rehabilitation. Like, what is the sentence that will make this person learn the errors of their ways? But there's other reasons to give a sentence, like deterrence and vengeance and preventing them from doing it again, which is the case in the Spencer situation. So
sometimes making an example for the community.
Exactly.
Yeah. So justice. I want justice. That antiquated notion that it's supposed to be justice, not I want this, I want that, I want that. It's like, how about justice?
Yeah, and these are all aspects of justice, right? But in certain circles, the focus has really been on rehabilitation, I think, to the exclusion of the other factors. And that leads to these kind of very light sentences that didn't used to be as much of a thing.
The cost of the trial is the punishment. That was the Trump issue, but now in Georgia, they got to pay him back that into $17 million. So it's a punishment, but now it's a punishment on the prosecutors. So now let's turn to the situation, the MAGA civil war.
Oh yeah, it should be calm now. Everything should go really calm. Everybody's gonna be having a good time here.
So these are the notes. So just so everybody understands, we give these notes to the guests before they go we have it. Does President Trump have unilateral constitutional authority to initiate and sustain major combat operations in Iran without prior explicit authorization or formal declaration of war from Congress? So here we pulled out all of the Constitution, obviously Article 1, Section 8, to declare war. That's Congress. Article 2, Commander-in-Chief of the President. So it's a kind of a split power. You have the War Powers Resolution Act, which everybody talks about, that allows the president to deploy for 60 days. Then you have these cases in which the Supreme Court held that the president has the authority to unilaterally respond to attacks, because obviously you can't have a Congress vote on every particular thing. So he has to have that ability. That's the Commander-in-Chief piece. You have the Youngstown saying that was about if it's found in Article 2, the president has powers as a maximum. If it's in another article, the president's power is weakened, based on what's the theory of why he's using his power. And then you have this last place, Clinton, where the DC Circuit said that Congress, that the courts, members of Congress generally lack legislative standing to sue the president in federal court for violating the War Powers Resolution, making it largely a political issue rather than a judicial one. So even if the president violates the War Powers Act, Congress's only real option would be an impeachment process or something like that, because the president essentially is immune from violating the law. So what do you guys think? So the question obviously is, what do you guys think about this particular issue when it comes to Iran? The legal arguments are, some people are saying, for instance, the fracture is, you have the critics, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Matt Walsh, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens. They're saying that this is not America first, this is foreign influence, that this was not justified, and that this is a betrayal of MAGA and what's it called? A violation of international law. Well, the other side is saying that this was
international law.
International law. The other side is saying that this was clearly that this was necessary. Iran was an immediate threat to the region. We're seeing that now. And that this is regime change, but not regime change, and so forth and so forth. So there's a back and forth on whether this was now. Robert Barnes, who we all know, says that this was obviously unconstitutional, illegal, while Ben Shapiro says this was obviously constitutional and lawful because the president can do these limited strikes, and it hasn't even been 60 days yet. So anyone making an argument that this is not legal, should then look at the law that was passed that gives the president the 60-day option to actually go into a place like this. It had to be
Well,
60
a
days.
lot of their argument, Nate, too. I mean, if I'm trying to be fair to their side, their argument is that this is a betrayal. They feel of what Donald Trump campaigned on and has traditionally said. So a little out of the legal arguments of whether he could legally do it, not legally do it. I would say that they're arguing that, hey, you told us you would not do this, you lying bastard, you turned your back on the campaign promise. And we can argue it out, but I do think that that's a foundation of their argument. And I don't know.
I'll ask the lawyers here. Just one. The first question is, under the current law, the War Powers Resolution, which gives the president the 60-day window, would you say this use of force in Iran is lawful under the War Powers Resolution?
Obviously, yes.
Yes, but the War Powers, I'd argue, is unconstitutional.
Yeah,
really, Trump could just, if Congress doesn't step in, is it unconstitutional? I mean, if they're not willing to assert their role, okay. I mean, Congress has the authority to control the purse, do hearings, do impeachments. If they aren't doing any of that, then he's doing his thing.
Well, Sean,
technically he could wage a war forever.
Sean and Ryan, I just want to ask, when you guys said that the War Powers Act itself was unconstitutional. If you guys can just explain why you guys think that too.
Just to add a little color to that. The War Powers Resolution was passed after a number of unilateral executive actions that led to prolonged conflict. Like the Korean War, for example, was never declared by Congress. We lost 50,000 troops, right? So it's clear the executive has inherent authority, or at least a history of using inherent authority to do broad scale military action without a declaration of war. The Korean War was as broad as it gets, right? Now, the War Powers Resolution purports to limit the president's constitutional authority in a variety of ways. It requires some notice, it requires a report after 48 hours, and it requires an authorization after 60 days. But every president, since the War Powers Resolution was passed, has taken the position that it is not constitutional and does not bind them. So when they write those 48 hours in reports, every president says the legal equivalent of, I'm writing this because I want to, not because you can make me. Right? They say
this is a courtesy.
Yeah, they're saying I am doing this instead of saying pursuant to the War Powers Resolution because it binds me. They're saying this is consistent with the War Powers Resolution. Here's your notice. It's consistent, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm not bound by this. Yes. And I can't imagine the Supreme Court would ever take a War Powers case to rule against the president. Because it would invite a constitutional crisis. They might take it to strike the act down, but the Supreme Court's never going to rule that the executive can no longer control the military. It would be way overstepping their bounds.
Yeah, and Congress has options. Those checks and balances are already baked into the system. Start holding hearings, subpoena him, impeach him, take away funding, figure something out, do something. But you don't get to decide how he uses the troops. He can use the military how he wishes. And if it's a big enough problem, you should be able to stop it. If it's not, and the people don't think it's a big enough problem, then, it's not a problem.
Let Joe get in because Joe's been waiting.
I don't really, I haven't heard Barnes' explanation for why it's unconstitutional, other than if he's attacking the War Powers Act in general. But I think this is much more of a political question than it is of a legal question. I think that at this stage, after 60 days, you could start getting into the whole legal question more. And frankly, I really hope we're not there in 60 days. On the political end of things, I understand the betrayal claim. I get it. The flip side of that is that he routinely said that he's going to bomb the S out of Iran. So for all his talk about never starting new wars, I mean, he said the one place he did say he would attack is this place. So it's not like it's quite the betrayal that it's being portrayed to be. I don't think there would be nearly the same outrage if this was some military action going on in South America that had nothing to do with Israel. But I think that this outrage of we're going to war, you promised we were going to war, I think a lot of it is being motivated by what people refer to as the Groyper movement or the White Wolf, right? Because Israel is involved and there's all these questions about Israel's purported outside influence on this country. And that may be true, that perhaps they do have an outside influence.
If I'm being fair,
And
though,
I think that,
he complained about Venezuela as well, and some of them did, and that does
much
take
less.
Israel out. But it's still there. And I'm not saying I agree with the argument, but I will say that, specifically mentioning Barnes, he griped to the moon about Venezuela. He griped about Iran last year. There has been a degree of consistency in that argument, and I'm sorry to.
Fair enough. No, I appreciate you pointing that out. I wasn't really referring to Barnes when I was talking about this. I was really talking about the other influencers who you mentioned. Yeah, or the other influencers you mentioned. Although, to be fair, the Venezuela thing is not really comparable because that was such an in and out quick hit, and there was no loss of life. So in that sense, this is obviously more of a prolonged thing and more of a reason to complain. So I'm trying to give a balanced perspective here as to what's a healthy way to look at this. Frankly, I don't want him in there. I think that certainly at this point in time, I would love for him to be out of there. What I've expressed on this, and my position remains, is that I think that politically it's suicide if we're still engaged in this conflict come election season, which we're not quite at election season, but we're getting close. And I think he's insane if he's in there election season, because I think that will destroy us in the elections. And I think it will destroy any possible achievements that this Congress, if they can do anything, which look, they can't even pass the Save America Act. So I don't know what the hell this Congress can do, even when we have a majority, much less if we lose our majority. But the point that I'm getting at is that he has had such a remarkable track record in foreign affairs in being exceedingly prudent in not risking American soldiers' lives and having win after win after win without ever risking. I mean, this guy knocked out ISIS, took out Soleimani. He got Maduro. One win after another. He got us out of the Paris Accords. He stopped paying Iran billions of dollars. You look through the 6 years that he's served as commander-in-chief, he has had win after win after win after win and never put American lives at risk. This is the first time he's ever done this. Do I know why he's doing it? No. Am I excited about him doing it? No. But if this guy who gets so many wins and is so exceedingly prudent with our troops' lives, and he says this is a time we need to do this, I gotta say, you know what? I have to trust that he's not being hoodwinked by Netanyahu, but that he's actually looking out for American interests. And I'll give him a leash to do this now, but it's a short leash. Like, I really don't want to see us there, come summertime, because if we're come summertime, it's going to kill MAGA over and over again. The only thing right now I think that's hurting MAGA is the screaming and the infighting that we're having. But as far as his agenda, that's why I give him this leash at this point, because this guy has been the best president on an international stage when it comes to international affairs. Hands down. I'm talking all 47 presidents. He's easily been the best one while never risking American lives unless obviously it was completely necessary. So for that reason, that's why politically I give him this very short window leash, which I really pray that we're not in there come July.
And Joe, can I make, because I hear you and I don't disagree with any of that, but can I just make the positive case for why this is actually a good thing? Not just like a neutral thing or we need to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's a good thing. I mean, first of all, Iran is a terror state. We have had casus belli against Iran every second of every day since 1979. There was just a guy convicted of trying to organize the assassination of the president on behalf of Iran a few days ago, right? So this is a constant state of affairs with them. They had a meeting with Iran where Iran told the Trump administration that they have enough 60% enriched uranium for 11 nukes. That's not a small thing to say that you have. They can never be allowed to become a nuclear state. Never. So, and then you have this window for this maximally effective first strike, which is a timing issue. It's not going to last forever. And then big picture, zoom out, not just about Iran. What's been happening to the US on geopolitically? China has been challenging US hegemony, and China's been doing that by manipulating international law, by manipulating currency, by weakening the petrodollar, by trying to sabotage the US economy, by stealing intellectual property, and going after US dominance in oil. They've done that through their proxies. Who are their key oil proxies? Venezuela, Iran. So what's been happening is that we have been unable to challenge China's geopolitical assault on U.S. hegemony, and the president, for a variety of justified reasons regarding to narco-terrorism, actual terrorism, nuclear threats, with proper justification and the use of military force, managed to take the head off the snake of the Chinese global assault on U.S. hegemony in a matter of months. It's a geopolitical masterstroke on his part, to be honest with you. I found it to be incredibly. I mean, obviously, you get stuck with boots on the ground. That could be a very bad thing. But so far, this has been, I think, overwhelmingly in U.S. interest.
All right, we got some super chats that want to jump in here. Let me see. Trump has always been consistent when it comes to Iran. Then when Iran sent people here to eliminate him, he is justified for attacking them. That's from Kimberly.
Yeah, the UK said that they foiled 20 Iranian-funded terror plots in the last calendar year. Right? Like, I mean, this isn't a state that actively funds terrorism.
Yeah, I've got to push. Because I hear both sides, and I could already say, oh, so you believe everything they spin for you here because you agree with the particular instance. So now you support the deep state. Everything the deep state is accurate, but then other times you don't support the deep state. And I'm just saying that this is an argument I can already feel, coming in. It's like, oh, so why do we trust them now if we don't trust them on other stuff? How about being consistent?
Well, I've never been that guy, so that's not my fight to fight. Like other people, like I know people who were no new wars guys. I've always been hawkish about U.S. interests, so I'm delighted to see that the president is taking an aggressive position against our adversaries.
Well, I would say this. It's because I think Joe laid it out pretty well in terms of there are two arguments being made here, right? There's the political argument that this is a betrayal of the speeches and all that. We no new rules. But then there's the legal argument about whether this is lawful or not. And I think Ryan's argument is more to the political spectrum, right? This was a good thing, and this is why they're being hawkish. But then I also point out that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And then how does this really go for? Because there's going to be after effects. Taiwan, for instance, then why not just China says, F it, let's go on to Taiwan. That would be a problem for us. And then let's not also forget, we still have the North Korea problem. And I think it also gives other states the incentive to say, well, damn, if we get the bomb, we can be like North Korea, no matter how bad it is.
Well, yeah, but that's already been the game though for 20 some years. So.
And I think this solidifies that more with someone like Iran or some other state who's just better at hiding the fact. Because look what happened with Pakistan, right? We had no idea they were even trying to develop a bomb. The next thing we know, they're testing nuclear weapons because and now we can't attack them because they got the bomb. So I think,
but Pakistan is technically an ally of ours too, though.
But for now, but also like the thing about Iran is that Iran's been investing in asymmetric deterrence. So they invest their military in boats and sea mines that can clog up the waters and get the trade routes, and in terror cells. Because if they're attacked, they can use the terror cells for asymmetric deterrence. Now imagine they had a nuke. I'm not even making the argument that they're going to start nuking people, though they might. They certainly might nuke Israel. They certainly might try to nuke the U.S. But even if they don't, let's assume they don't. Now you can't attack them. You can't do what we just did. You can't decapitate them militarily. So now they can invest all their money in Hezbollah, in Hamas, in the Houthi pirates, or whatever the next generation of Iranian terrorism that they come up with is. Iran's always been the linchpin of the terrorist efforts in this region. When we were in Iraq, they were the ones who were supplying the IEDs that killed our troops. This has been a long-standing conflict, and I can't imagine a world where the U.S. is better off with an Iranian country that's immune to military pressure and can spend all their effort going after the great Satan, death to America, through their, hands off. It's not us. It's Hamas. It's not us.
By the way, can I point out when you mentioned the Iraq and Iran, all that, remember in the 80s when Iraq was our ally? Because of Iran. Where did Iraq get the chemical weapons? Let me think about that. And who did they use them against? Iran. So there's a little tit in that tat, if you will. I'm not trying to be completely, hypocritical. And I think that all these other mistakes along the way really muddy the water, and it makes it, far more difficult to just say this is a clean operation.
I think success breeds repetition. I think the president has had much success with this decapitation method. Decapitate, go in and control whatever's left, right? And that's Venezuela. I think Venezuela was so perfect in its execution and its ends that I think it made the administration more confident in the decapitation method. And I think when it came to Iran, you had all your eggs in one basket, right? They all were meeting in that one place. So what did they do? Let's go blow up the damn basket. That's what they did. Decapitate.
And we keep blowing up the basket.
Yeah, keep blowing. But you've got their top 40 people, and then the second in command, they got them too. But now the problem is that method for us in the past did not work. It didn't work in Iran and Iraq. At first we didn't decapitate, left Saddam Hussein in the power, and then we did the decapitation and went on with the shit. Same thing with Afghanistan. Same thing with a lot of these places. We do this. So it has been successful recently, but the big issue is that when you do employ it and it's not successful, you get a Cuba, because Cuba was a decapitation. You get all these other places where it hasn't worked. Remember, Osama bin Laden wasn't one of our allies, and then all of a sudden got 9/11. So where does this end? That's the problem.
Cuba was a bad example because
we tried.
We didn't. No, we didn't. We half tried. We sort of were doing it. Then we did pull the chicken switch at the end. So Cuba could be almost the counter argument for some of this, because we did the Bay of Pigs. Why did the Bay of Pigs fail so badly? Well, because it was an operation, and then it was like, oh, let's pull all the support out, and so then they were left out there hanging. I want to be fair that you could argue both directions on Cuba, because like a lot of people celebrate JFK and say, oh my God, he was so great. He got them to turn the missiles around. It's like, yeah, you also got them there in the first place because of your actions.
Well, so it's if he would have kept the Assalto Brigado. Well equipped.
But we're not denying the decapitation method, because that's what they ran against, right? The whole 4 years, right? We're not going to no new wars, no regime change. That's been the whole thing. So
no forever wars.
No
forever wars is really my concern. I mean, like there's no forever wars is my concern. I still think China needs to be dealt with. I still think Russia needs to be dealt with. And honestly, if we can clip the legs out from underneath China by starving them of oil, then fuck China. Like, I'm all for that. It's either that or we have to go knock out the Three Gorges Dam and kill 700 million Chinese people. This is actually a little more of a cost-effective route. And, China is seeing this, and what are they learning? They can't stop us, because what's their technology? Stuff the Russians gave them, they've improved upon. We literally just walked in there and, to the point of the B-1 bombers, there's footage of this out in England. They were pulling out the cruise missile launchers out of the planes, the little rotary things for it, and equipping them to drop bombs, just straight bombs. So now they don't have to fly 300 miles away and launch a missile. They're going to fly 30,000 feet over Iran somewhere and drop bombs. We literally have just destroyed the entire Iranian air defense network. We have lost merely a handful of airplanes total in any situation. They haven't shot them down. It's very much, if I'm Russia or China, my blood's running cold, because, oh my God, we can't stop these people.
I think
it's not the idea of, oh, we need to move. It's like, oh my God, these guys moved full speed finally. We finally saw all the stuff that they're doing, and holy crap, we are not up to par.
I think this is the emergence of what I call the Trump doctrine. And I think Iraq and Cuba are good examples to contrast, right? Like in Cuba, we wanted to get rid of Castro, so maybe we can get an exploding cigar in there. Our intelligence was kind of so laughable, and the attempts were so antiquated, right? And then in Iraq, we did mass carpet bombing to take out the military, followed by boots on the ground, build a democracy, right? And I think we've learned from those lessons. We've learned lessons from the things that didn't work well. in those situations. What we've shown in Venezuela and Iran is that we have shockingly good intelligence. We know exactly where. Remember, in Iraq, we couldn't find Saddam Hussein because of his body doubles. He had 13 body doubles and all the different castles. We know exactly where your leaders are. We know exactly who they're meeting with. We know when they're vulnerable.
In Iran, our intelligence is Mossad. In Iran, you mean to say Mossad has remarkably good intelligence?
Well, what's the alliance for? That's one of the reasons we're allies with them is for their intelligence, right? And then two, we have military capacity for decapitation that is completely different. We flew stealth bombers 37 hours. They took out Iranian air defense. And to Sean's point, who gave Iran its air defense? China. China sent over the anti-air tech and the anti-air tech systems. That's a startling message. We have missiles now that they shoot that they go up into orbit. They come across and they come back down into the atmosphere. Like, this is a very different ball game, and China's technology does not appear able to counter what we're doing, which is part of the point. Now, if we get bogged down in a forever war, then that's going to be a refutation of the Trump doctrine. But if it works, if we can keep pushing these like surgical decapitations followed by negotiation, that'd be great.
We got to be careful though, because there's a little bit of a mission accomplished thing happening now that I'm worried about. And keep in mind that why is it, if we're so successful, why are there ships concerned right now about going through the straits? Why is it going? Well, because drone technology is screwing up our pattern here a little bit, and there are other things that are going on. Iran, yes, okay, they've got no navy. Well, then why are ships threatened? They've got, the army's busy. Why are ships
Remember,
threatened?
that's the insurance companies.
Well, however you want to put it.
Got hit. Just like
well, the insurance companies are a little upset when the ships get hit. They just got hit.
Just got hit. Yes,
but there have been other times where those ships have been hit, and the Straits of Hormuz have been dangerous to shipping and tankers. And tankers have been attacked, and Lloyd's and these companies didn't flinch. So, I mean, a little of this is a little political, a little people getting antsy.
There's a risk assessment with insurance, right? If they're saying we're going to blow up your ships that go through, then the risk assessment, I think, dramatically goes up. And I hear the whole U.S. overwhelming force. We have it. We've done it. We've got the ability to do it. But the reason why it's unconvincing is because it reminds me like of Vietnam, right? We didn't lose any battle in Vietnam. But most people would say we lost the war because sometimes, even though you have the technologically advanced, you do have still this insurgency that you're dealing with. That's why we had to give back Afghanistan to the Taliban, right? Because even though they couldn't mess with us when it comes militarily.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is that that's where they live. That's where and it's a totally different situation.
Yes.
So I agree with the decapitation. I think that's what makes this Iran so much different than Venezuela. Because Venezuela, we didn't change the regime. We just took out the top guy and left the regime because they knew how to work everything. So they essentially worked for us. Here, by taking out the entire regime, I think that's the issue because now who's running things? We run things in Venezuela. Nobody knows who's running things in Iran.
The point of Iran is, we're the Khomeini's son. He's even more harmful. Okay, fine, we'll kill him too. This is very much
next?
like
Who's next?
It's the bank robbery scenario. Who's in charge? I'm going to keep beating the shit out of people until you acknowledge, America's in charge. Like until they understand that, and eventually they're going to say, "Well, I don't want to die." Okay, cool. Yeah, hey, Donald Trump, we'll listen to you. And then the lesson has been learned. So. In the meantime, like if they keep getting snuffed out, that's fine. But this is different than Vietnam because we didn't go into Hanoi and vaporize Ho Chi Minh's house. We didn't go bomb the Politburo every time it met up. Like the way this is a different style of war. This is a very classical type of warfare where you're just exterminating the leadership.
Yeah.
Because don't forget before. They had the executive order that you couldn't take out that you couldn't target the leadership particularly.
Oh, yeah, but we've done all. But there's all kinds.
Forget about that. We're going to take
it out. It's taking out the leadership and also taking out your ability to punch us by basically hitting your armaments.
Well, and like keep in mind, I mean, like as it's been reported, obviously none of us have intelligence clearance. We weren't in these meetings, but it's been reported that like when the Trump team sat down with Iran before these strikes, the Trump team said. Like, here's what we want. We want you to stop funding terrorism, and we want you to stop enriching uranium. And since you want your uranium for civilian use, for nuclear plants and such, we will give you free uranium, free civilian use uranium for use in your nuclear plants if that's what you want. No charge. And the Iranian government took the position that funding terrorism and enriching weapons-grade uranium were non-negotiables. They were off the table. So it's like, well, what are we supposed to do in that situation where it's like, okay, your position is you're going to keep funding terrorism and you're going to develop nuclear weapons? I mean, you at that point you have to respond. There's no question that a response is necessary. It's just a question of whether or not we have an effective technique. And hopefully this technique is effective. I mean, obviously Iran is much bigger power than Venezuela, and we're not able to subdue them in 6 hours. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we get to a position of sustained dominance where somebody does, to Sean's point, show up in the leadership structure who says, actually, I would like to negotiate. And then we can take it from there.
Go ahead, Joe. I knew you were trying to jump inside there.
No, I wasn't. I expected more conflict here. Well, actually, I didn't really expect such high conflict because, I mean, I think Ryan is the strongest here as far as being pro conflict, and I would have expected potentially criminal to be more against this war than he was.
I'm very cautious.
He seems to be exactly where I'm at. He seems to be exactly where I'm at, where it's like, okay, this is okay. I don't want to see troops go in there.
I don't want DynCorp getting contracts to tool around in Tehran. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Right, I agree with you on that.
Halliburton's okay. No, I'm just kidding.
Only KBR. I'm a KBR man.
Since I have all you lawyers here, what I did was, just so we're all on the same page, I pulled up the streams that Barnes particularly and some other lawyers were making the argument that this was unconstitutional, and I'll read you guys exactly their arguments, and then you tell me if you guys agree with it or not. So
steal their content.
I'm mystified that they made this argument. It seems such a weak argument. Okay, yeah, I'm listening.
All right, so so this is Barnes, and this is his argument on the constitutionality of the war with Iran. So here we go. Let me put this on the screen. Oh, here we go. This is Robert Barnes.
In the United States provides that the executive branch, the President of the United States, is commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but did not give him the power to declare war. And that was left to the legislative branch in Congress. So here, did Congress declare war against Iran? The answer is no. So then the second question becomes, is there some implied authorization of force that the president could rely upon, such as the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973? That provision requires an imminent risk to the national security of the United States. There was, by nothing I've seen, any substantial evidence that there was an imminent risk to the security of the United States from Iran that was proportionally met by this attack.
So now I'm going to stop here because
thank you for stopping there.
So the first one, the first one is so the first argument. I'm just going to coach it in this way: Congress starts the war, the president executes the war. So the president's not allowed to start the war, but he executes the war. We declare war on this person, then you send troops to do all that stuff. So that's why he says this is Article 1, Congress declares war. Article 2, Commander-in-Chief is the execution. So now he's saying that's what makes that unconstitutional. And then the second is the War Powers Act, which most of us agree was likely unconstitutional. But it says that it's got to be proportional, imminent, essentially self-defense, proportional and imminent risk. And he's saying that it's not. So I'm stopping there to let you guys comment. Do you think his arguments have merit, or do you think they're lacking?
Well, he even frames his argument as saying it's nothing that I've seen, and I didn't know when he changed his name to Pistol Pete Hegseth that what he's seen. Like I haven't seen either. I sort of take it as a given that people in our War Department have a lot more access to information as to what's a potential threat to national security than you, me, or Robert Barnes. So there's this assumption of omniscience that we, the public, have when we're trying to assess the morality of a law or the reasonableness of an attack. I don't trust our government, okay? I assume our government is geared up to send us out there and to pump us up to go support the military-industrial complex. As a general rule, I don't support our government. The only thing I trust here, which is why I give support here, is I trust Donald Trump because of the long track record he has of being exceedingly prudent with American troops' lives, that when he says he needs to do it, that he's not doing that other than the fact that he feels it's genuinely our national security interest. Everyone points to what Rubio said to try and say that Israel dragged us into this war. What he's saying is we recognize the reality here, which is there's two realities. One is that Iran has said they're going to attack us if Israel does something. And two is that Israel's going to do something. So rather than wait for them to attack us, we said, you know what? Let's cut those arms off and cut off the head of the snake, who's a terrible, awful, evil tyrant. Everyone agrees to that. Let's cut the head of the snake off and cut their arms off. So inevitably, when Israel does something, we don't have to worry that they're going to say, oh, we hate you too, so we're going to start bombing L.A. You know, I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. Robert Barnes hasn't seen the intel on it. I haven't seen the intel on it. I have to assume that the guy who never wants to start any wars and hasn't started any wars while ending one war after another and putting America into a place of exceptionalism where we are the most respected power in the world. I think I got to give this guy a little bit of a leash to say I'm trusting that his intel is and he's being truthful in his intel because he's never done this before.
Also, just to back way out, his constitutional analysis doesn't make any sense. I am very suspicious of people when they say, in my reasoned judgment, everything America's done in its entire history has been unconstitutional, but I'm right. I'm the one who knows what the Constitution says. Thomas Jefferson attacked the Barbary pirates without congressional authorization. We went to the Korean War with congressional authorization. We bombed Libya for a long time. We were engaged in Libya without congressional authorization. And this is the three that come to the top of my head. Put times the U.S. has engaged in military actions without congressional authorization into your favorite AI tool, and you'll get a list that's pages and pages long. We've been doing this our entire history. What, all of these administrations were wrong and Barnes is right?
I'm going to pause you because Barnes actually talks about the Thomas Jefferson thing. He actually cites it. So here it is. Here's what he says about Thomas Jefferson.
Our founding generation, from an originalist perspective, the Constitution would agree with you. Thomas Jefferson went to Congress before he went after the Barbary pirates.
No,
so that gives you an idea of what our founding generation believes.
That's not true.
No, he said the way Thomas Jefferson did it. He said he came to Congress and said, "Oh, I sent a bunch of ships to go deal with the pirates. You know, are you going to tell me no?" And by that point, you know, they're already sorry. They're already halfway around the world.
FYI, it's the 1800s and there's no way to reach them. They're in the fucking
1801s,
ocean.
yes.
You
like,
know?
Oh, wait, I can't get a hold of them. Okay, let me send out I'll stop them. Hold on.
Yeah,
but I think you guys are right because again he's making two arguments. One, the unconstitutional argument, but what do you guys think about the second argument? Because you guys didn't address that the argument that this violates the War Powers Act, even though I know you guys think it's unconstitutional, because there was no imminent threat as both the act requires and as international law requires.
Well, I think that's where you have to start. It's not constitutional. Like you can't tell the president when he can use force, but also I would argue even if the War Powers Act you want me to hold to it. Okay, if those things don't apply, then I'm not within the framework of the War Powers Act. Like there is no immediate threat, so I'm just operating outside of the War Powers Act. I mean, like if we want to be like smarmy lawyer guy, I'm not operating inside the bounds of the War Powers Act at that point. But no, he doesn't have to. He can use the military to go to wherever he wants. He could deploy him wherever he wants. He could start building bases in Israel and just deploy 100,000 troops there tomorrow, and Congress, he's the commander-in-chief of the military. So they can't stop that.
The aspect of the War Powers Resolution that's most likely unconstitutional, it has a number of problems, but the one that's the weakest is the 60-day rule, which says that if the president complies and then after 60 days, Congress doesn't authorize, he must stop at that point, even if Congress does nothing. Like in the absence of congressional action, he's supposed to stop after 60 days unless they bless the action. That probably has a non-delegation problem. Like Congress is like there's a lot of case law that says that Congress can't set up these kind of like auto vetoes. They have to actually go through the process if they want to pass a law. But as to the war powers resolution itself, all it says is you have to notify Congress. Then there's a 48-hour after you do it, then you have to give them an update, right? The idea that the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on what is or is not eminence is insane. There's no chance the Supreme Court takes up that question.
I think he's relying really heavily on the structural argument of the Constitution. That's the structural argument of the Constitution, and the declaration of war is the start of action, and the execution of war is the president's prerogative. So essentially, what he's saying is that the president, by starting a war, is taking that is essentially taking that prerogative from the legislature and initiating it without them. So he's saying there's this process issue that's backwards. And the counter argument to that would be that that the War Powers Act is just about self-defense. No one denies that the president can act in a self-defense manner to protect, U.S. shipping interests and stuff. But now, an offensive war, that's what he's saying it's unconstitutional. So I want to make that distinction. He's not saying defensive. If he responds to that, that would be constitutional. He's saying offensive action is unconstitutional unless authorized initially by Congress. Does that make that any more convincing to you guys, or is that less convincing?
I don't buy it. I mean, what was Jefferson attacking the Barbary pirates not an offensive military action? Like, they weren't next to our waters. They were
no,
abroad.
but they did capture our vessels. In fairness,
Okay.
so it could be considered defensive. I think pretty clearly.
Iran attempted to assassinate the president this year.
Oh, I agree. But you asked about Barbary pirates.
Yeah.
So I was just doing an example of that Barbary pirates, I think. And by the way, the Barbary pirates were a pain in the ass all the way back to Washington and prior. I mean, they were snagging ships, and at one point we were paying ransom to them. It's not
another example of the United,
kind of like Iran, a long going.
Here's the problem, though. This is another example of the United States using imperialism to kill brown people. That's all this is. It's all it ever was. We're using imperialism to kill brown people. That's all it is, really, at the end of the day.
So it seems like right now, it seems like the consensus here is that it's too early to really understand what's going on, what the end game here is.
Oh, I agree.
Even under the best possible legal circumstances, he's had 60 days, which we're 2 weeks in. So the legal aspect, even if you say under current law he has 60 days, and even if you don't agree with that, you still can make the argument this is defensive. And then the last part, it seems like we all in agreement that we need more time. But how much time do you think politically the president has to turn this around? Because right now, it's all hell breaking loose. Again, Kelly's out there essentially saying that people are dying for Israel, right? The political reality of this. What do you guys think about that? Can he overcome this? And it has to split the base.
That's where the 60-day clock of the War Powers Resolution is going to have bite. Not legally. I don't think that you're ever going to get the Supreme Court to argue that the commander-in-chief must do anything with the troops. Like, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But politically, there's a 60-day clock. And once it expires, if Congress doesn't bless the war, Congress is going to say, now this is illegal because you violated the War Powers Resolution 60-day limit on authorization. Mm-hmm. Now, could they land the plane on that legally? I don't think so. But can they use that to be a political cudgel that's going to be very damaging to the president in the midterms, etc.? Absolutely. So I think that's the soft clock is 60 days. And as we get around the 60-day mark, you'll start seeing one way or the other, there's going to want to be some decisive end to this.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
I agree. Right. Well, there was also the very real clock about when are midterms. Mm-hmm. How far out from midterms is this resolved? Sorry, but if you're talking about politically speaking, everything is relative. Like, let's say he runs it over, and then he runs it over another 30 days without authorization, and then we're out, and it's proven very successful. There seems to be some degree of leadership. Everything is going just ducky afterwards, and it seems to be an overriding success. It just took a little longer. That's one political outcome. Or we're still there come October, he's screwed. So I think that there is a very real clock, and depending on the outcome, we've got to kind of wait a little bit and see what happens before we can make a determination as to how this will work out. I mean, your thoughts?
I think you're 1,000% right. I think, but personally, I'm not comfortable with them going in, and for the reasons why they're going in, because like I was saying earlier, I think there are just too many. You say, like, first it was because of this is because of this. Every reason they gave for going in, they've actually then gave the argument against that reason was no good. Israel, it wasn't Israel. It was an imminent threat, but there was no imminent threat. This was preemptive. So it's really murky on why they went in. As a matter of fact, even Joe said, I don't even really know why they went in. But I also think that success breeds repetition. Like I said with Venezuela, it couldn't have been more perfect. Venezuela couldn't have been more perfect. And I keep saying that because people say, and I think, like Eric pointed to me earlier, Venezuela had boots on the ground. They went into there were boots on the ground. And it was, there was like, you couldn't get any closer to war as it is. And then after they pulled the president out, Trump really said, well, if the vice president doesn't do what we tell her to do, then we can pull her out too, right? And there's been a whole bunch of act right in Venezuela. And it's done exactly what you guys said: cut off the Chinese oil supply, cut off the Russian oil supply. It's you could not be more successful in Venezuela as they were. I think
it was an act of war.
And it was an act of war.
It was an act of war. It worked. And it was done before anybody could do anything about it. But go ahead and do that here. See how that worked out.
But then in Iran, I think Iran's going to be but that success, I think, cuts both ways. Because in Iran, people are expecting that type of success, and he's selling it, right? We've done mission, essentially saying mission accomplished. But if, like I think what Ryan's saying, if we're now in week 4, week 5, week 6, every day this goes on, you start losing that trust, and oil prices are skyrocketing, right? But in California, I love it because it's $8 a gallon in California already. But that, and I think those economic
five of them are taxes.
Yeah. I mean, it's 6 on a good day. Now it's 8.
But I think those political realities, the longer it goes on, the more that becomes, and then eventually you lose. So I think timing here is going to be critical. But again, I'm not for this war, but I do think there's a real great possible outcome. And I'll also say this too, because I want to be totally transparent. If I had the same opportunity Trump had, where you have all top 40 people in Iran in the same place, and you could take them out, I'm blowing up that basket too.
Of course.
I think that was the right move. But now it's what happens after that. That's where we're arguing.
Yeah, look, this was the right thing to do, but even the right thing to do can be bungled by poor execution, right? Like, if we can't land the plane and do it successfully, then a good idea could turn into a bad idea in practice. But I think we had to do what we were doing. It was the time, we had the opportunity, it was the right move. Now, how it's going to play out, I think one thing I would caution people about is a lot of people are complaining that Trump isn't giving them clarity about like what our operational conditions are. Like, we'll achieve victory when this happens. We'll achieve victory when X, when Y, when Z. But think about it the other way around. What is Iran's win condition? They're not going to beat us militarily. Their win condition is drag this out as long as possible and engage in a propaganda war that makes this costly for the US, for President Trump politically. That's their win condition, right? So if he comes out and says, there's no way we spend more than 3 weeks there, well then on day, on 2 weeks, 6 days in, they know exactly how to win the conflict. So he can't exactly be totally clear on these things because you're fighting an asymmetric war, and that's how the other side wins. And also, this is just like my pet peeve, but like you can be pro this conflict, you can be anti, there's lots of positions you can take. But if you go so far as to be hoping that the US loses or rooting for Iran, something has gone wrong with your moral calculus. Let's take a step back and just remember that this was the same government that executed between 8 and 30,000 of its own citizens for exercising free speech this year. These were not great people.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand too, we're now to the point where the not just the Revolutionary Guards, but it's like the Bazee, I think is what they're called. They're kind of like the Republican Guard / like thug element that did all the shooting and does all the violence on behalf of the Iranian government, because they actually don't trust the army. The actual regular army is not trustworthy, but these are the actual diehards for them. We're now to the point that anytime those guys are putting together checkpoints and things are starting to get together, this win condition, we're just attacking these groups of people now. And like people in Iranian citizens are coming together. They're notifying. They have tip lines where information is getting fed to the Israelis and the Americans, and we're striking every group as they go. These groups of guys as they go. I mean, we're really far down the list of stuff to kill. So the idea that we're really narrowing this down pretty quick and whittled it down pretty far. So
let's take care of these super
the win
chats.
condition, I think, is we're almost at that win condition, it seems like.
You're exposing us to Barnes this early in the day. Guess that's reason enough to start drinking early. Oh no,
that's not untrue.
It's more that Thomas sent an armored convoy of peace offering, told them to protect themselves, and sent a faster ship to tell the pirates to F off. So it's talking about the Barbary pirates, Thomas. So it seems like. So I would say this. I agree with you, gentlemen, 1,000%. But we'll see, because we'll be on the next couple of weeks, right? And then we'll come back. And if we're in week 5 of this, it's like, things is not looking too good. So this is kind of a wait and see. Eric, what are your final thoughts?
No, that's it. How many times Nate and I talk on the phone almost every day, and this subject comes up quite a bit. How many times have I said, well, we've got to wait and see what happens. We need to see where we are in a month and 2 months. I think that the 60 days is a very real clock. And also, part of the problem we have is, what does a win look like and what is acceptable to people? Because to me, a win is that Iran is defanged and can no longer cause the harm against us and our interests in the area. I don't expect Iran to be a friendly country. I don't expect us to be allies in a long time, if ever, as long as they're kind of like Libya. What's Libya doing to us right now? What's Syria doing to us right now? We've got an Al-Qaeda guy in Syria, but they're not really doing anything. And I think that's kind of the best that we can expect. If we could say that, hey, Iran cannot become a North Korea, Iran can't become a Pakistan. Yeah, they hate our guts. Sorry, it is what it is, but we can move on and just travel together in the future. I think that could be considered a win, and I'm curious where you guys are in that.
Yeah, I think that would absolutely be a win, and I think even a lesser version of that would be a win. Like, there's no permanent solution here. Like, if your victory condition is that Iran can never be a threat again, then you actually need to occupy the country. But what you're hoping for is that you're going to defang them in the medium term, let's say, and that you're going to, maybe in the most optimistic scenario, get somebody in power who's more willing to negotiate with us in good faith. And that would be a fantastic victory at that point. What would be a mistake is trying to go in there and build a democracy, because we've clearly established that we're terrible at that. We're pretty, except for those people in South Korea are pretty happy about it. So,
well, Japan is too, but we let them build it themselves. That was a big difference. Like Nate keeps bringing up Venezuela, and I'm saying that Venezuela is like Japan post World War II, where we left the emperor in power. We said, okay, you know what? You're still in power, but there are conditions. And because of that, over time, it's actually worked out very well for us, in my opinion. This is the mistake we made with Saddam. We didn't only remove Saddam. We didn't only remove his upper regime. We did the equivalent of saying we removed the entire political party. So it would be like, currently the Republicans are in power, or the House, so we're going to remove the president. We're going to remove every Republican in Congress. We're going to remove every governor that is out there. We're going to remove every state legislature that is out there. We're going to remove every Republican that's in charge of a facility somewhere. That's what we did in Iraq. And I think that was the problem. Whereas here, it's like, no, we're getting this bit at the top. And if we let somebody more reasonable, step into power somewhere down the chain, I think that's the best that we can hope for. And, like I said, to cripple their nuclear capabilities for an extremely long time.
But to be fair, though, like what you're saying about the political parties, that was what happened in Germany after they lost World War II. If you were a part of the Nazi Party, you were white, right? You were either going to go to prison or something like so. So they went in through and so I think that was just kind of a learned lesson. Like we got to get rid of all the bad apples in that political kind of structure. And I think with Iran, the problem is that I think they just went. But it's weird because I know I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth.
We also have occupied Germany since World War II.
And I would have blown up that again. I would have killed all 40 of those top officials. I would have done that. But it's just now, who are you going to work with to run it? And I just don't know. But Joe, I know Joe just came back. Joe, how do you feel about the conversation?
I think that to be fair, from a historical perspective, we have had a terrible history with regime change anywhere in the world, and in particular in the Middle East, and in particular Iran. I mean, we've been involved in regime changes in Iran going back 80 years.
Yes,
I mean, for forever we've been terrible at that. We see a terrible dictator, and we say we gotta get rid of this guy, and we think this other guy is good, and the guy we think is good ends up being somehow worse. It's hard to imagine how the next one could be worse than Khomeini. It's really hard to imagine.
His son.
ISIS is worse than Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, like I said, I'm putting my trust in this one in Donald Trump, but only because he's earned it, not because I'm like, oh, in this arena when it comes to foreign affairs, if you ask me to put my trust in him and who he's going to select to be the next head of DHS or anything like that,
Attorney General,
or the next judge or Attorney General, yeah, I'm like, I have zero confidence in him because that's an area of weakness. But when it comes to foreign affairs, this is an area that he excels in ways that no one else ever has. So I'm putting my trust in him on this.
And I think we can look at the terms, right? When we were negotiating with Venezuela, what did we say? We said, like, you expropriated billions and billions of dollars of U.S. investment and stole it, and now you're giving all the oil to our adversaries. We think that you should not do that and should start working with the U.S. again. They said no. We removed Maduro, and then we said, hey, would you like to restore U.S. oil interests and start working with us again? And the next person said yes.
Actually, they said no, and we said, we'll take your ass out. Yeah. And then she said, oh, you know what? Let's revisit the situation.
We can gas up these helicopters.
Yeah, he literally told the vice president, if you don't, you could be like Maduro.
Yeah.
You got
who's next, right? Yeah. So then I think we did with Iran. What did we ask? We said, we need you to stop enriching uranium. We're willing to give you uranium for civilian use for free if you want it, and you have to stop funding terrorism. So I think we're waiting for somebody in the chain of command who's willing to agree to those things. We'll see. What are we, 100 people down? Maybe 102 is the lucky number.
Well, there's 90 million, and there's a certain percentage that is pretty dug into some ideology. So it's not an easy switch. That's why I'm kind of in the pragmatic approach of just, look, they don't need to like us. We don't need to be friends. We don't, as long as they really can't hurt us, then fine. We could just survive on this planet together. There are many countries that hate our guts, and fine, whatever. As long as they're not harming us, go ahead and enjoy yourself. But you know what? We'll put it out to all of you and everybody who's coming here and watching later. Please comment below. We do want to hear your opinion. I don't think it's a black and white situation. But for now, Ryan, what do you have coming up?
Well, actually, tonight I am, funny that we had this conversation, I am debating Wick on Sarah Tomato's show on whether the U.S. has a moral obligation to follow international law. I, to the surprise of nobody who watches my content, I'm taking the negative. So I'll be debunking the myth of international law this evening at 7:15. tune into my channel or Sarah's channel or Wick's, but preferably mine, to watch it.
Right, and they ask you who's Wick.
Yeah.
Oh, Wick. Wick hosts political debate panels. So he I think he's probably best known because he hosts Destiny a lot. But he's in that that circle.
All right. Well, you know what? I would be interested in Destiny's viewpoint on the first story we covered, since his pattern of behavior has sometimes been very interesting. His thoughts. I'll put that out there. That's kind of an inside topic. People comment away.
He's like, we need maximum protection for PDFs. That's the.
Joe, what do you have coming up, man?
I was hoping you'd go to me last because I actually have something coming up this time. Believe it or not, I usually have nothing. I'm going to share my screen with you if you're okay with it, if you're okay with that. Yeah, this is here. I'm sharing my screen now.
As long as you're not like the teacher who was had his laptop still connected to the screen.
This is what I have coming up.
Welcome. Just come right up here.
Do you swear or affirm to tell
This
the
is
truth?
Kid Cudi's actual testimony that what I've done is I've actually used AI to recreate his voice, to recreate different scenes from their actual his testimony.
Yeah, I'm going to be very candid
against Diddy.
What Diddy did to his car is hilarious.
You in my house?
Oh, this is amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what are you using on that?
I used AI to recreate his voice, the voice of Brian Steele, the voice of the judge. The only voice I couldn't capture was the attorney who's handling it on direct.
No. I mean the animation here.
The animation is all AI.
Joe's telling Brock, make the black man angrier.
All right, well, I'll ask you offline.
Yeah, but I'm actually thinking about. It's scheduled to go live later today, but I'm thinking about making it go live right now. What do you think about that? Like, I can actually
you send me a link to it, I can put a redirect on.
Yeah, and put a redirect.
This is what I'll do. I'm going to make this thing. I'm going to make it go. I'm going to make it go live right now. So you can all go on over there. Should I
schedule it? If you schedule it as a premiere, I can set this up to where people will redirect. But if you don't,
okay, I can do that. Let's do this.
Also, people could super chat during premieres.
So, how do I don't know how to change this. It's already scheduled right now. It's private. How would I switch this?
You can
go in and you say check it to set as premiere. There's a
public.
Click on the public. Go back to that.
When you go back to public, right under.
Yeah, you hit public and then you hit set as premiere.
Yeah, and you can say.
This is how the sausage is made.
Wait, you could public it. You could schedule the premiere.
Yeah, and schedule it.
Schedule it.
And schedule for. I'll set it for 2 o'clock.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just
don't set as an instant premiere, but set this. So, click on 2. Do you see the click the premiere button? Click that. Now go back up top to the done, and then
Where's done here?
Yeah, go done. And just make sure, it's set as a premiere. Yep, you're all set.
So at 2 o'clock, I've got a premiere. I'm also starting a channel where I plan on making more and more of these. I want to make these. It's a lot of work to do it, but I'm hoping that this is the sort of thing that I feel like it's not just that it's cool watching him testify against him. The testimony itself is actually really interesting. It was a fascinating thing. To what I was privileged to watch. So I'm going to urge you guys, if you can like and subscribe, don't do it right when you walk in. According to AI, it's better if you wait 4 minutes into it. Otherwise, the YouTube reads it as being spam. But if you guys can help promote this, watch it, drop comments, stuff of that nature. I'm really hoping that this is the sort of thing that can help take my channel to a different level. And if it does have success, I'm going to plan on using my second channel to actually make a lot more of these, where this will become like sort of my second job, is creating videos like this where I take transcripts. Now that's the thing, is I'm not writing this. This is the actual transcript. I'm taking these transcripts and bringing them to life so that we can all appreciate them and enjoy this testimony together. So,
sounds good. I did set up a redirect for you.
Thank you.
Make sure you there's a click down there when you go to details that says something about AI. Is this AI generated or whatever?
Yeah, it does.
Because if you don't do that, they'll crush.
I would actually recommend, Joe, just for the future, and it may seem to be overkill, but I would put in the description that it's an AI representation, and I would also have
I already have that.
watermarks on different points in the video saying AI representation, because when you do that, then you're just completely covered. YouTube,
Yeah, that's this.
channels.
ChatGPT told me to basically wrote this description for me, and they told me to make sure to put this in here to help the videos AI dramatized to help protect from any sort of claims against that. So, yeah. And I'm actually thinking of taking my second channel, which was called Trump Trial, and it's been dormant for a couple of years, and changing that to AI witnessed.
Can you post the link in the chat here so people can?
I just dropped it. They're going to be redirected anyway, Nate.
No, but
I'm just trying to.
I think it's a good thing. I appreciate that. I'll give you the link if you want to.
No, he's already dropped it. He's already put it.
Oh, you put it in there. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you guys can give it if you enjoy it, if you can give it a like and maybe a subscribe or all that other stuff, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. I think you'll like it. It's just 16 minutes and it's a fun video.
Yeah,
So
I like what I saw already. It was just pretty good.
And thank you very much. So that's what I got coming up. For the first time ever on this show, I actually have something.
All right. Well, Sean.
Yeah, so we just finished up the Corey Richins trial. The defense rested without calling anybody yesterday, so we'll see how that goes for her. See how that works out on Monday when they do closing arguments.
So she's toast.
Probably. I don't see how. I don't think she's going to win. I mean, I could see why a jury might agree, but I don't think it's going to happen. So tonight, I need to catch up on some things. So we'll be covering Tyler Robinson. They're in a pre-trial today for I forget what they're doing today, but we'll watch that later this afternoon.
Same lawyer, right, as Corey Richins?
Yes, he has the same lead attorney on both of them. Oh. And then coming up, I just because it dropped yesterday in the Ninth Circuit, there is a hilariously brutal dissent that was just filed by a judge where he talks about swinging dicks. I don't know if you saw it, Ryan.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, so it's basically in Washington State, there are these Korean, Christian spa owners and, some Lehekin neurodivergent male who thinks he's a woman and also a sex offender.
Yes.
Wanted to come into their spas and shake it. We went from bake that cake to wax his wiener very quickly. They didn't want to do it. He sued them under the discrimination statutes in Washington. They've appealed this to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit said, well, you better wax that wiener, boy. And the judge dissented with this, was just pointing out how moronic this whole thing is. And I just started reading it, and I got to get into it.
Isn't there a precedent to this in Canada?
There was somebody, his name was Jonathan Yaniv. He gets, I can't do anything down here to me, buddy. He was trying to do this in British Columbia, and even the Canadian authorities were like, no, we're not going to make these women wax your ball sack.
All right.
And was intentionally doing that. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Ball sacks leads us to Nate. What's going on?
That's true, right? Well, we were talking about Kristi Noem and her spending like a crazy sailor. Did you know those 60-second ads for $220 million? That was like less than The Matrix and like Iron Man, like all those blockbuster movies. She spent more on those 2 60-second ads than Marvel spends on the Avengers movies. It's like insane stuff.
But she needed work to look good.
And then we didn't even talk about
Are you talking about the Super Bowl ads.
Then we got the $173 million she also spent on three private jets, so her and Corey Lewandowski can fly around the world. And it's like insane. So I don't know why she just went insane and why Trump didn't just fire her. So we talk about all that and all that. And the last one is obviously we're doing the Spence case because I think
deporting everybody ain't cheap.
Look,
maybe.
And people say the government can't do anything efficiently. Crazy. What a bargain.
Yeah, $220 million. So and there's a whole bunch of, because you guys know how I like to do. I like to do the nonsense. But the wild thing I keep going up to. So a lot of my stories, what I do is I go in there and say, like I said last week, give me the craziest story. But the crazy stories happen to be Black, Hispanic, blah, blah, blah. So I cover those stories, and now I'm a racist because I'm covering all the stories that all the AIs give me because they're crazy. But I can't force certain races to do crazy stuff. I just cover the crazy.
You had a white mayor.
Stop! You're making it worse.
No, he did cover a white mayor, and nobody watched it.
The white. No, it still got 100,000 views. But so I'm just saying, I like to cover crazy, and unfortunately, the people who do crazy look very different in all cases. So, I'll still cover it. And if you think it's just racism, then I'm sorry.
Well,
ask the GPTs yourself.
Nate, if it makes you feel better, the same people who would accuse you of racism also believe you can't be racist. So there you go.
That's true. That's true.
You also can't figure out how to get a photo ID too. Apparently,
those same
people. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a little self promotion. I did an interview yesterday. I hope some of you check it out if you're interested in Oklahoma City, or correction, if you're interested in the order, Oklahoma City, Ruby Ridge, Waco. The individual that I interviewed is Danny Colson, who had a 30-plus year career in the FBI, and he was the guy on the ground. Ever heard of a movie called Dog Day Afternoon? That was his unit that took out the bank robbers. If you've ever heard of the Atlanta prison riots, that was him as well. Not to mention the whole string going all the way up through Oklahoma City. This guy was involved, and that's just my channel. It's under my name, Eric Hunley. Look me up. If that's a subject you are interested in, I think you will enjoy that interview. It was a well, I've actually interviewed the wife of Lynn Horiuchi's partner, and I may be interviewing Lynn Horiuchi's partner if you want to talk about that. But anyway, that's another story for another time. And by the way, on the Ruby Ridge argument, Danny Colson said that it's a quarter inch. Why the hell are we doing this? So, and he had written a memo at the time. But
quick question: do I need to do anything to start this premiere, or it just starts automatically?
It starts on.
It'll start automatically.
Okay.
And it will be in about 1 minute. So I'm going to end this stream. Everybody head over, or just hang out sitting here, and you'll magically be transported over there to Joe's channel. And as always, thank you so much. Consider subscribing here. It's down below. It's free. It's free. I mean, it won't cause harm. I promise. So have a good evening, and I'll see you soon.
Godspeed.